right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We have a busy November coming your way. Next week, we start a series of events we've never done before. So we're focusing on archaeology, paleontology, and geology. So do make sure you visit exploringbytheseat.com. Check out those lessons. I actually have more to put up today, so I've got to get on that after this call. You can register for some of those with your classroom, tune in live, or catch the recordings later, whatever's best for your crew. This week is really, really busy. We have 3, 4, 5 events going on each day as we team up with CNN to celebrate Call to Earth Day. So that's actually today. So if you tune into the channel, if you tune in on the website, you can find some really cool stories about things happening around the world. And if you don't know, CNN has an editorial series that kind of goes on throughout the year, reporting on environmental challenges facing our planet. So together with solutions. They're really trying to drive awareness and education around key sustainability issues and to inspire positive action. So like I mentioned, today is Call to Earth Day, but we like to go big here. So we wanted to do a Call to Earth Week. We have been sharing the stories of scientists, explorers, adventurers, and conservationists who are at the front lines of our changing planet. And then they're bringing those stories back to us. So we are kind of sharing a combination of stories and people who have been shared on CNN over the last year or two, but we're also reached into our community of scientists and explorers to share some of their really cool, exciting stories from all over the world. We've got a really fun adventure that we're going to go on right now. We are going to spend a little time with Maria Bollerup. So she is a highly experienced technical cave diver. Through her organization, Nixie Expeditions, she specializes in extreme exploration for environmental conservation, leading multidisciplinary teams of divers, cavers, scientists, and storytellers focused on water all over the world. So we've been lucky enough to catch up with Maria on some of her adventures with her team not too long ago. They were down in Indonesia, diving in some incredible cave systems, documenting both the dry and the wet parts of the cave. She was also a scientist on the Darwin 200, looking at coral in the South Pacific, which was pretty cool to see some of the videos she brought back from that journey. But we're going to now reach across the ocean into Europe to find Maria. Let's see if we can grab her. Hey, Maria, how are you?
Hello, I'm very good. Thank you very much. I'm sitting here. It's late afternoon in Denmark, Scandinavia, and I'm really excited to be back on Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants.
Excellent. Well, Maria, we have a great group of classrooms joining us from across Canada and the US. More are going to tune in later as the time zones get a little bit friendlier for them. But we are really excited to kind of get into your world. It's a place that very few people get to explore. It requires an incredible amount of training, a big team as well in a lot of cases, working on all kinds of different logistics. So yeah, we're excited to see this beautiful, beautiful part of the planet.
I'm very excited to bring you down there. I'm going to load up the presentation because underwater, inside the planet of the Earth, everything is so unique. So I put together a presentation so you can see what I see when I go cave diving. Let me just get this open. Entire screen.
I see it loading. That's a promising sign.
Very good. You see it?
It's coming. I'm going to bring it in. Yeah, I think, yep, it's full screen now. Perfect. We're good to go.
All right. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to be bringing you underground. I'm going to be bringing you into water-filled caves on planet Earth. But first, a little introduction. My name is Maria Bollerup. I am from Denmark in Scandinavia, and my first language is Danish, not English. So if I speak in words that are less elegant than what you're used to, then that's why. It's not my language. But I'm a cave diver. I'm a technical cave diver. This means that I go and explore underneath the surface inside the planet. And I do it mostly with my best friend, which is the girl next to me on this picture. Together we have a company called Nixie Expeditions, where we go out and explore these water-filled systems, both to see what's down there, but also to protect it. Now, you might not know this, but you might be sitting right on top of caves right now, underneath your feet. Many of them are hidden. They're super mysterious, and they're just waiting to be explored, because many of these places has never been explored before. That's one of the things that I really love about going inside them, is that you know that nobody has seen what you see when you turn the corners. I know some of you are sitting in North Florida, or Florida in general, and I've actually been cave diving there. There are caves all over the planet. This is a map. And you can see a map of these caves, and you'll see all the red slabs. That's where we know there are karst underground. And karst underground is actually ancient ocean floor or coral reef. And as you can see in North America and all the way up to Canada and Alaska and down in Mexico, there are a lot of this karst underground, which is meaning for me caves. So caves are made by over thousands and thousands of years of time, where drops of water slowly drip into underground, and it dissolutes. Is that the English word? It dissolves. That's the word. It dissolves the underground. So you can see the first picture up on the left. You see the water, how it's slowly seeping down through the cracks in the rock. And then by time, the cracks get bigger and bigger, and these underground streams start carving into the rock like big tunnels. And in the end, you have massive rooms and channels that are spreading like veins underneath the ground of our feet. It's like veins inside your body, but just in the earth. Some caves are super easy to access, but some caves are not, like this one. This is in Mexico. And actually, when you walk through the jungle in Mexico, underneath your feet, there is water. If you're on the east coast of Mexico, in the peninsula of Yucatan Island, it's one big freshwater reservoir, or aquifer as we call it. And it's just a massive body of water sitting underneath the jungle. And as you can see here, the jungle has collapsed up in the top, and it's giving access to the water underneath. And this would be a place where we could start cave diving from. But here we would need some rope, or maybe even build some sort of a ladder to get in the water. For us today to get into the water to cave dive is one thing. But if you go back in ancient times in Mexico, there you needed to go down underground as well to get this water, because there was none on the surface. So as you see here, people were building ways or little staircases to go and collect this fresh water. So that means when we're diving today, we actually still find artifacts from when people were walking underground trying to find these water ponds. And sometimes they would have to walk through big tunnels of caves that was completely black and dark. They still are today. But back then they would have to bring a torch, because back then, of course, there was no water. This here we know is from the Maya times. So the assumption is that somebody has been sacrificing these potteries and these bones. It's not just people that had to walk underground to find water to drink and cook with. Also animals had to. And this is from a dive that we did. And I think we're about 2 kilometers underground, and we came across these footprints. It might be a little hard to see at first, but if you really try and focus, you'll see that it's paw prints, hundreds of paw prints. Of course, if we touch it, we will ruin it straight away. So we are very, very careful with how we move inside these caves. They're very fragile. Now, we know that this spot here was dry about 10 to 12,000 years ago. And we believe the animal that was running around in search for water was this little fella, the capybara. I would love to see one of these today, but imagine seeing them inside a cave. How cool would that be? So, as I said before, these caves are often made of ancient coral reef. And this is a picture from Indonesia where you see a giant clam. You see it there in the ceiling. This clam still grows in the ocean today. But it also did back in this cave when it was formed, or when this coral reef was formed. You see it's really dark in the cave, so we have to bring a lot of light. This is a whole bank of these mussel, of these clams. And it's so unique because this picture, again, was taken when we were several kilometers underground. So just sitting there on your diving gear, thinking about how this was a thriving coral reef with fish and crabs and eels and sharks and everything in the ocean, but hundreds and thousands of years ago. Besides the corals and the shells, we also find these amazing crystals inside the caves. This is from the same cave, and you can see how these crystals have been growing from the top of the ceiling of this cave. Now, these crystals can only grow when there's no water inside, but on this picture, there is water inside. So at some point, this cave was completely dry, and the water from the jungle and the air upside or outside was coming down through this soft underground of cast, and it would slowly just drip down into this dry cave, making these amazing formations. These are called stalactites because it hangs from the ceiling, and then it starts dripping on the floor of the cave as well, and then it would make another formation of crystal that grows upwards as the drips build it up. And that's called a stalagmite. And when they meet each other, which they will at some point, if you give it enough time and it's dry long enough, then it's called a column. Again, this cave looked beautiful, but you can only see it because we bring a lot of light into it. If you turn off all the light we brought with us, it would be completely black darkness. And that means that the creatures that lives inside the cave, they can't see anything. So this is a picture of a cave fish and a crustacean. And as you see, they're white and they have no eyes because they don't need them. There's no light anyway, so what would they be looking at? But they have superpowers. They can sense a lot. They're super sensitive in sensing and in hearing. Now, as I'm exploring in the water, often above our heads, there are also caves, dry caves. So this is pictures from an expedition where we had a team of people trying to, or not trying, but exploring the caves above our heads. And as you can see, they have to crawl with ropes and walk around in there. And I believe that my job is a little bit easier because I can just float through the cave quite easily, where they have to climb and walk. But again, look how beautiful it is with all these stalactites and stalagmites that have been growing inside this cave. Can you see the tiny person in the picture right down in the bottom? That kind of gives you the scale of these caves. Like in the water-filled caves, there's also creatures living inside the dry caves. There's a lot of bats, but there's also some other less, I think, let's call them a little bit more creepy crawly, like this one. This picture is from the same expedition, and they found a whiptail scorpion. And this guy is huge. Actually, it's a lady because you can see on the back of it, it has all the little babies. Every little green body is another baby. And the whiptail scorpion becomes up to 27.6 inches or even more. I can barely see it, but maybe at the top you can see this black string. That's the back leg of it. They have extremely long legs because, again, they live in darkness, so they have to sense their way through the cave. I have to admit, I'm happy that this whiptail scorpion does not swim, because I wouldn't be so excited to meet him underwater. But I know that the scientist that found this one was very excited. They found it very cool. It's not dangerous at all. Now, the scientists are, of course, looking at the creatures, but they're also looking at different things in the caves. And because we can go to the furthest parts of the cave, they sent us in there to take samples for them. This is Ranma and myself, together with Dr. Eco. That's his actual name. I think it's a very cool name for a scientist. And we're standing in front of what is called an underwater scooter. So this black thing in front of me is what pulls us through the water, so we don't have to swim, because we're going in such a long time underwater. Sometimes we dive up to 6 hours. We get too tired, and then it becomes too dangerous. We want to be safe in the water, of course. So by putting ourselves on one of these scooters, we simply just clip them onto our harness, and then they pull us through the water. And I actually think I have a little picture or video later on where you can see how it looks from my scooter when we scooter through the cave. But when we go into the caves, we look for different things. The scientists are very interested in the bacteria that lives inside the caves, because bacteria can be used in medicinal science. And the more different types of medicinal we get, of course, the more we can protect the human race for diseases. But also, we want to know what lives inside of these caves. And to do so, we use something called eDNA. And eDNA is simply you take a sample of water, and then the scientists can look through that sample, and without even seeing any creatures, just by looking at the DNA inside that water sample, they can figure out what kind of creatures that are living inside the cave. And actually, on this expedition, this was in October in Indonesia last year, we found a completely new species of shrimp, which I think is pretty cool. Now, this is the video. This is me filming in front of myself. And what you look at, the black thing here, is my scooter. And on top of it, you see the package of waters that we are now transporting back to the scientist. We are 4.3 kilometers underground. I don't know what that is in miles, but it's a long way. But look how fun this is. You see this white piece of string that goes through up on the left? That is called a guideline. Now we have to use a guideline. We put it in there so we can find our way out, because it is very, very easy to get lost inside of a cave. If I stop the video here and we started looking at the ceiling and the floors, you would see that it's all a fossilized coral reef. And maybe it doesn't look like it's super fast, but trust me, when this one is pulling you, it feels very fast and it feels very fun. Whee! So why do we go inside of these caves to look for science and new species? Well, one thing is because it's important to understand what's underneath our feet. But another thing is that these caves are actually quite threatened. In some parts of the world, they are, especially in Asia, where you have smaller islands and people that is not fortunate to have running water in their homes, or a big industry, or just a good economy, actually. These water resources have the challenge of being drained by bottled water companies, and also companies that built. So when you build a house in Asia, often you use cement or concrete. And one of the parts in cement or concrete is cast, so fossilized coral reef. And the solution is to make protected areas. So one of the things that we work on is to go into these areas and document the caves so they can become protected. And if we protect the caves, we also protect the people that live around the caves and the animals. These caves hold the water, the drinking water for the people. This is outside a normal house on the island of Pulau Muna, but they don't have water inside. On the left side, you see the square or the center of the village. That's where they go and wash their dishes. So think about that next time you put your cup and your plate inside the dishwashing machine. You might had to be walking to the center of the square to wash your dishes if you lived in Indonesia. And on the right, you have the toilet. And the toilet you have to flush with a little bucket. We also learned that they are deeply connected to the caves in Indonesia. We know they are in Mexico as well, but in Indonesia, they actually believe that humans were made by the drops of the stalactites inside the cave, or an ancient folklore. Of course, today, they know that biology is what created humans. But back in the days, the folklore said that it was that humans were grown in a cave. They also think that spirits lives inside the caves, and before we can dive in them, we have to be blessed. And blessed is one thing, but once we are blessed, we also need to respect the caves. So you cannot say any bad words inside the caves. When we go inside these caves, we do it because we like it, but we also like to be part of a team that makes a difference. And I'm not a scientist, I'm just an explorer. And to be an explorer, you don't have to be the strongest. You just have to be curious and you have to ask questions. Now, I'm going to show you, as a little roundup of this talk, I'm going to show you a 2-minute long video where we explain why we go to the furthest parts of our planet and why it's important to talk about it. And that's why I'm here thanking you guys for listening today, because these caves are so important.
Art is essential to capturing exploration. Images from the edge show why we must go to the furthest reaches of the Earth in order to protect it. On Expedition Bhutan, we traveled deep into the Lau Laui cave aquifer, now the longest cave system ever recorded in Southeast Asia, at 5.2 surveyed kilometers. An ancient coral reef hidden beneath Pulau Muna for millions and millions of years. Essential to protecting this ancient underland is sharing its unique beauty with the world. But working at the edge of the unknown in extreme environments multiplies both risks and challenges. Gear is more complex, shots are far harder to plan, and locations take longer to find, configure, and light, and all on the ticking clock of the elements: air, temperature, battery, time. Yet from these most challenging places comes the most impactful art. Art that speaks to the fragile beauty of our natural world. And so we embrace the unknown. We learn to use the difficulty, and we return to share from a new perspective the extraordinary, precious world beneath our feet.
Wow. That makes me want to go diving and exploring. I hope that these little quick 20 minutes maybe have inspired you to go exploring something. It might not have to be underwater in caves, maybe dry caves. I don't know what is your interest, but there are still plenty of places on this planet that we need to explore, and with that, protect and conserve. All right, let me see if I can go back out of this and into, there we go. Am I back?
You are back. Hey, Maria.
Hello.
Thank you. That was great. Yeah, it's always fun to follow along with your adventures, and every new piece of video I see that last one where we were getting 360 perspectives as you were moving through those tunnels, moving through the veins, the arteries of our planet. It's pretty amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we need to get to some Q&A action. So if you're tuning in with us via YouTube, don't be shy to use the chat sidebar. Send us in some of your questions. And then I've got a few classrooms hiding backstage. I'm going to bring them in and we'll see what their questions are. In fact, let me double check where those classrooms are. I think they're both in Florida, and I know Florida has extensive underwater cave systems. So
Absolutely.
that's pretty darn cool. So we're going to bring them in here with us shortly. I'm going to start off, though, with a question here from YouTube. And the question I have here is probably one that you get a lot. Aren't you nervous when you go into these enclosed spaces, 4 kilometers deep?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And you're right. We get that question a lot. The honest answer is no. I'm not nervous. I'm alert. And I go with a team that has been training and practicing this for years and years. So we're all expert. We know exactly what to do if we have a malfunction of our equipment, or if something is happening with our navigation in the cave. There are so many protocols that we have trained again and again that it's becoming second nature. So no, I'm not nervous, but I'm very curious and very alert.
Yeah, I think that's really important is, myself as a diver who doesn't go into caves the way that you do, any new dive, I think there's always kind of maybe a little bit of butterflies in the stomach, especially in a new location. But that's why you plan. And then I find once you hit the water, that's gone. You're just so excited to be there. You're immersed in that environment. So I know you guys plan extensively. You've got a great team around you. So I think that takes away some of the risk. I think that helps boost your comfort levels as well, and knowing you've got so many great people to rely on.
Absolutely. And the butterflies are very important. We have to be excited to put ourselves in this position. Of course, it's challenging and it takes dedication, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the classes who I'm going to bring in here shortly, they are in Florida. So they are close to some of those really cool cave environments. I'm going to bring Mrs. Avilia's class in first with us. Okay. There they are. How are we doing, everybody?
Hi. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
All right. We would love a couple questions if you got them.
Here, honey, in front of the camera. Okay, what did you want to?
Yeah, a little bit lower. Scooch down a little bit. There you go.
All right, what did you want to ask?
What's the longest creature in the caves?
What is the longest creature in the cave? Mm-hmm. Was that your question? Yeah. So the longest I've seen is actually an eel. So we see eels, and that was in Florida, actually. Wow. So the longest and biggest creature I've seen was in Florida caves, and it was a beautiful eel. And I would say it was almost 1.5 meters long, but I don't know what that is in inches.
All right. Very cool. A lot of the life in caves is pretty small, though, right? I think a lot of it's pretty small. But then they have those really cool adaptations that you talked about.
Yeah. The eel was not very far in. That was actually in the entrance of the cave, and it has eyes. So he was just kind of hanging out in the entrance of it.
Pretty special. Do you have another question there for us, Miss Avilia's crew?
You had one, right?
And we'll come back, I promise. I'm going to bounce a little bit to another classroom, to some YouTube questions, but we will come back.
Since when did you start diving in caves?
So I started normal diving when I was 16 years old. And then I started cave diving when I was maybe 24, 25 years old. So I was a little bit older and I had some experience. And today I'm 40 years old. Would you like to be a diver? You look like somebody who want to be a diver. Yeah. Maybe one day.
Cool. Well, we're going to come back your way, I promise. Okay, let us go to Miss Ramos' crew. How we doing, everybody?
Morning.
What was your favorite cave to dive?
Ooh, my favorite cave to dive. I think my favorite cave to dive was in Mexico. And one of the reasons was we found bonfires from people that was living inside the cave. So because the water is coming back inside the cave so slowly that when people were down there before, when there was no water, they sat by the bonfires, and these bonfires were still there when we were swimming through. So of course there's no fire in it. You could just see the coal and everything that had been burning, and they placed little rocks around it to shelter it from the wind inside the cave. But I think that was pretty cool to dive in a place where I saw that people had been sitting 10,000 years ago. That was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
What was your favorite animal you discovered?
Ooh. My favorite animal that I discovered and not that I saw. So I would say it would be the little shrimp we found in Indonesia. I think it's pretty cool to find a shrimp, but I don't know what we should call it yet. Something cool. Maybe you have a good idea.
All right, very cool. Well, we're going to come back your way. I'm going to dip onto YouTube for a couple minutes, but then we will come back to our camera classrooms. So the first one is we've got someone wondering if you've ever heard of or maybe even dived in a cave called the Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre in Central America.
I think we're talking about the caves in Bahamas, the Crystal Cave. Sounds like it. No, if that's the one, no, I have never dived the Crystal Cave. I would love to, though.
All right, pretty cool. We have a 7th grade classroom in Connecticut, and they're curious about your gear. Have you ever had a gear malfunction that ended a dive?
Yes. And you know what? It happened at the worst point of the dive because it happened right when I was all the way in the bottom of the cave. And right in there, there was a small, what do you call it? Like a little explosion because of the pressure of the gas in my tank. So suddenly air was just flowing out of my system. And of course, air is what I need to breathe. So that was a critical point on the dive, but we've trained for it. And I had extra gas with me. So I just turned off the tank and started to go back out of the cave. But again, several kilometers underground, you don't want to hear your equipment explode. But everything good, we managed.
All right. I think that's what's so important about always diving with a buddy. If you have someone there with you who can help, that's always a good situation to be in. Okay. We're going to drop back into Canada now. We've got a classroom in Mississauga, and they're wondering about, do you ever see human? So you talked about, ancient human, but what about human impacts now? Even though these systems may seem far away, are you ever seeing any human impacts in those caves?
Fantastic question. Yes, unfortunately so. Because they're sitting underneath our feet and we don't see them, we don't think about the contamination. And unfortunately, a lot of the wastewater from top is draining down into these caves. So especially in Mexico, we see a lot of pollution inside the caves. And the trouble is that the pollution that sits inside the cave slowly move through the channels all the way out into the ocean. So even though we think we have isolated problems in here, it impacts out in the ocean. And that's why we work so hard in protecting these caves all over, both on land and to the ocean.
Okay. And they have a follow-up question. The farthest you've ever been into a cave system?
The farthest I've ever been into the cave system, well, that would have been 4.3 kilometers bird flight. And that means a lot of doing this to come back out. I don't know what that is in miles. You use miles, right?
In Canada, we use kilometers, but miles in the US. I think it's something around like a 1.6 conversion. So maybe just under 2 miles, somewhere around that 2 mile mark, I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, swimming that takes a long time.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Okay, let's get some faces back in here. Mrs. Avilia's class, do you have another question or two for us? And then we're going to go back to YouTube for a bit.
What is the biggest cave in the world?
Ooh, the biggest cave in the world. Well, the biggest dry cave in the world, I think, is in China. But you might have to look up with Mrs. Avila to see if I'm right on that. The biggest underwater cave is in Mexico, and that is several hundred kilometers long, over 200 kilometers long. So it's huge. Yeah.
Pretty cool. I see lots of hands, so I'm thinking there might be another one there for us.
Yeah.
Where was the tiniest cave you ever went to?
The tiniest cave. Ooh, the tiniest cave was actually also in Mexico. Some in Florida are pretty tiny as well, but some of those in Mexico, they are so tiny, you have to kind of crawl your way through them so much that you have to take some of your equipment off and put it in front of you so you become like a long tube. And then you squeeze through, and that is where it's really good to be a small girl, because I can fit in the holes where the big boys can't fit.
Very cool. You have one more there for us before we
One
check
more
in.
question. Go
Miss
ahead,
Ramos
Yara.
through.
How many caves do you explore?
How many caves do I explore? Oof. Well, a lot actually. When we go on a cave exploration trip, we can explore 30, 50 caves over one trip, but only a few of them has the big water systems. So often we go with the machete and we find a hole in the jungle and we put our head in, and then the cave stops straight away. So it's like a treasure hunt. You try many places, but only a few of them open up and become these beautiful caves.
All right. Thanks for those great questions.
Mm.
I see a lineup here, so we better get over here.
What was the scariest cave you visited?
The scariest cave. Well, some of them are really light, white and pretty caves, and some of them are very dark, almost like they are burned. And in the beginning, I found that like the dark and black caves were a little bit scary, but then I realized that we shouldn't touch them, but if underneath all of that darkness is actually light, and they have different ways of diving actually when you go through these black caves. So I don't really find them scary, to be honest. I just found them a little bit more like eerie, like moody, if that makes sense. If a cave can have a mood.
So what was the scariest sea animal that you ever saw?
The scariest sea animal. Actually, diving in French Polynesia, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's darkness, and I can hear a sound, and it's like a woo, woo, a very, very like eerie, deep sound, and I can feel it inside my chest. It's almost humming in my body, and it was humpback whales. So first I didn't know it was humpback whales, so I got quite scared. I thought, what is this? But then I realized, and then it was beautiful. So that's often the case, isn't it? When we don't know what it is, we get scared. But as soon as we get information, it's enlightening. And the same with these humpback whales. That was probably the scariest moment.
So how did it look like?
A humpback whale. Oh, it's beautiful. Actually, there was two. So when I see the humpback whale, I see a shadow coming up from the deep. We're in the middle of the ocean. There's no reef, only the sound. And I see the shadow coming up from the deep. And I realize that it's a humpback whale. It's like a huge 20-meter whale. But what I didn't know was that this was just the baby. Right underneath it, twice the size minimum, came the mother, and they came up and they were right next to me, and the baby was looking me in the eyes, and she was at least 10 times bigger than me, but I'm not very big. Yeah, they're beautiful. They're very, very intelligent eyes. They look right into your soul, and you can feel they're kind.
Pretty cool. Do you guys have one more?
No? No.
No, that's okay. Maybe. I think I saw someone get up.
Yeah.
All right.
Have you seen a shark?
Yes, I've seen many sharks. I've actually been working with sharks. Again, in the middle of the ocean, we had to go out and we had to put tags on the sharks, like little GPS tracking devices. And to do so, you have to put the GPS on a harpoon and then you shoot it. And you don't really shoot it. It doesn't hurt on the shark. It's like a piercing. It pierces the shark just by the fin. So yes, I've dived with many sharks, but within research, and they're great creatures. They're very elegant in the water, and everybody think that when they see sharks diving, they will be scared. But I promise you, everyone I've dived with, when they see them, they get so mesmerized because they're so elegant, and they don't care about humans because we don't smell good, apparently. We're not food.
All right. Thanks, third graders. Yeah, that is my favorite. There's nothing better than being in the water with sharks. It's so cool. The downside is they don't always stick around. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they take one look and they take off. So that's the sad part, I think, is they don't stick around sometimes.
You have to be very calm.
Absolutely. So 2 more questions from YouTube. The first one is about the conditions in the caves. Does the water get colder? Do you worry about disturbing sediment? Is what they said on the bottom. This is a classic.
Yeah. So yes, actually both. We do worry about disturbing the sediment because when we disturb it, we can lose visibility. And of course, that can be a critical point in the cave. That's also one of the reasons why we have a guideline. If we lose visibility, we can take a grip on the guideline and we can follow it back out of the low vis. In terms of temperature, you have in many caves fresh water and salt water, and the salt water will be sitting underneath the fresh water because it's heavier, and often you can find a temperature change from fresh water to salt water. But also in Florida, especially when it's been raining a lot, you can feel that the water is colder and it's a little bit murkier.
Okay. Last question for you is about again about the gear that you use. So using gear in the caves, how long can a typical cave dive last?
Okay, so a normal scuba dive with one tank, which I'm sure you've seen or even tried, many of you, I know you do, Joe, that's around an hour. But when we dive in the caves, we often use several tanks, so we have more time, or we use rebreathers. And a rebreather is like a machine that circulates your air. So you're kind of just breathing around and around and around. And on those ones, we can dive 6 hours on the primary machine we use, some even up to 8 hours.
All right. I do have to get my act together and try using a rebreather and get some training. The longest that I've been able to push a single tank was in the Bahamas for an hour and a half, but we were just kneeling on the bottom and the sharks came to us. So it was, warm water, not exerting. But wow, 6 hours, pretty amazing. Yeah. And do you typically push that far, or do you have kind of a window where you say, okay, we have to make sure we're back in a certain amount of time?
Yeah, depending on the task that we are solving. But I would say more often is 3 to 4 hours in the exploration dives. 6 hours is a very long time to be underwater working and to be constantly on point. You get very tired and you get hungry, very thirsty as well, and you need to pee. So we solve that because we we have special suits so we can actually pee while we dive, which is very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm surprised that didn't get asked, because it usually doesn't matter whether we're talking to someone rowing an ocean, an astronaut. Students always want to know how that's taken care of in extreme situations. So
yeah, but it is very important. You know how bad you get when you have to hold on to your bladder, and you can't work when you're not comfortable.
All right. Well, I'm going to squeeze in one more question. This is kind of a fun one. And it just came in because you talked about 6 hours. So is it possible to take a snack with you underwater?
Yes, it is. It is. You're gonna both bring a little like water sachets. So Capri Sun, these what do you call that? It's like a juice, and you can drink that with a straw. But you can also bring bars. But a good point is not to bring anything with peanut butter, because you have to take your regulator out the mouth and then take a bite. And then you have to chew it, and you can't chew it with your regulator in the mouth. So you have to hold your breath as you chew and then swallow. So peanut butter is a very bad idea.
Okay.
I'm talking from experience.
All right. Well, Maria, thank you so much. I want to start with a shout out to our classrooms. Thank you so much for the great questions, and a shout out to those who will be tuning in later today and maybe tomorrow. In fact, let's bring in our 2 camera classrooms from backstage. If you guys want to give a big cheer, a big thank you.
Thank
Thank you for your really great questions. I hope you get to explore some of those springs and those caves in the future, or just dive. Florida waters are pretty good for wrecks and marine life. So yeah, I hope you get to check those out. Maria, thank you so much. It's always great to steal some of your time. And we can't wait to see where Nixie Expeditions takes you next.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's always a pleasure. Looking forward to next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you later today. We're going live from the Arctic, so join us later today. We've got more events tomorrow. But for now, we're going to say goodbye. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.